to 14 hours. Caribbean Sea, the P-8 Poseidon circles at 30,000 feet, and something appears on the synthetic aperture radar screen that hasn't been seen in years. Not one boat, not five, 98 speedboats moving in perfect formation, racing at 50 knots through the darkness, cutting across open water like a school of metal sharks hunting prey. The synthetic aperture radar shows them as red heat signatures stitching across the screen. 98, all moving together, all heading northwest toward North America, all carrying cocaine, over 6,000 pounds of it. Street value, $100 million. This is Llorona del Mar. Not a typical cartel operation using a few boats under cover of night. This is something different, something bigger. An entire fleet designed to overwhelm, to confuse radar, to move so fast that no civilian vessel could ever catch them. But what the cartel doesn't know is they're not being chased tonight, they're being lured into something far worse. A trap weeks in the making, a killbox set in the middle of the ocean, and the only thing standing between them and American soil is an Arleigh Burke destroyer, a team of Navy SEALs, 2 Coast Guard cutters, and 1 perfectly executed plan. In 27 minutes, everything changes. For years, the cartels moved cocaine through the Caribbean using semi-submersibles and hidden containers. Methods that worked. Methods that stayed invisible. But then, something shifted in the ocean. The FBI Miami field office started noticing a void. Every single month, over $100 million in cocaine disappeared from Colombia. Not seized at any port, not found on any boat, just vanished, as if it evaporated into the sea itself. The FBI signal analysis team started connecting pieces. Radio intercepts, financial transactions, unusual patterns in shipping data. Then, a name surfaced, Llorona del Mar. Not a gang, not a small operation, a complete maritime organization. What the analysis revealed was chilling. Each run, they launched 80 to 100 speedboats simultaneously, all moving in perfect unison, all using ultralight composite hulls nearly invisible to standard radar. No AIS transponders, no identification lights, no radio signals except low-frequency communications that stayed below normal detection thresholds. Each boat carried 250 horsepower engines that could push speeds above 50 knots through open water. The route was calculated. They departed from Colombia's Guajira coast, fanned out in a wedge formation to scatter radar returns, then converged at a blind spot in international waters. Somewhere around 200 to 300 nautical miles off Mexico's coast. Outside normal patrol range, outside civilian reach, outside the system. This time was different. This time, Llorona del Mar prepared to move their largest shipment ever, 6,000 pounds of refined cocaine, enough to destroy every community it touched. The FBI understood immediately. No Coast Guard cutter could handle this. No civilian pursuit team could chase 98 boats moving at 50 knots across open ocean at night. You can't block every direction. You can't chase each one. You can't let them scatter into the Caribbean where they disappear into the darkness. There was only one option: intercept them all at once. And only the military could do it. The FBI escalated instantly. The request went to the Navy, then to the Coast Guard. 3 agencies merged into the Joint Maritime Task Force with a single mission: set a trap at sea. Wait for the cartel fleet. End this entire operation on its next run. They named it Operation Black Current. The command center in Florida lit up with blue screens and focused faces. FBI agents, naval officers, Coast Guard commanders. On the tactical display was the decoded transport model. Not a few sneaky boats. 98 composite speed vessels charging as one unit, like a school of metal predators. The Navy ran the calculations. 98 speedboats at 50 to 55 knots meant engine heat signatures would sweep the ocean like thick fog. Chaotic signals enough to fool most long-range radars. The Coast Guard confirmed what everyone suspected. No civilian vessel could match that speed or intercept when they fanned out in a sawtooth formation, splitting into multiple directions to break radar target locks. Conventional blocking was impossible, so the Navy proposed something different. Don't chase the boats. Force them into a preset trap. A killbox designed based on geography, currents, and the cartel's optimal route. Between two reef lines exactly 14 nautical miles apart was a narrow corridor. Cross currents ran strong enough that any speedboat trying to save fuel had to maintain a straight course through it. If the cartel fleet moved as predicted, they would charge into this corridor where they couldn't turn. Couldn't fan out, couldn't accelerate to break formation. A natural bottleneck in the ocean. A place where the only way out was forward, or surrender. The preparation began immediately. An Arleigh Burke destroyer was designated as the mother ship for the SEAL team. 12 operators equipped to disable engines, suppress resistance, capture high-value targets alive. A high-speed littoral combat ship deployed to the outer ring to lock escape routes. Two fast-response Coast Guard cutters formed the final blocking layer, ready to pursue anything trying to breach the perimeter. Overhead, the P-8 Poseidon waited on standby with synthetic aperture radar ready to track the fleet from hundreds of nautical miles away. MH-60R Seahawk helicopters armed with harpoon-trained marksmen stood ready to disable engine systems from 60 feet away with inch-level accuracy. The FBI provided priority targets, 8 Lerona del Mare leaders scattered through boats numbered 45 to 56. 3 speedboats in the middle of the formation carried the highest purity cocaine and the command elements. Those boats were critical. If the SEALs took those 3, the entire operation ended in success. 2 hours before the expected intercept window, all active radar systems shut down. The destroyer switched to passive mode. Every emitting device locked. Lights off. Engines reduced to near silence. All electronic systems went dark to leave no trace of their presence. The tactical map showed one thing: a perfectly prepared killbox covering 12 nautical miles of ocean where 98 speedboats would have 0 escape options once inside. At 2:14 hours, as the Caribbean lay flat like black glass, the Poseidon received its first signal. Multiple tiny heat dots moving in sync, high speed, all on a single northwest vector. On the radar screen, they appeared as red needles stitching through the sea. Faint at first, then sharpening by the minute. The Poseidon's analysis software processed the motion pattern in 6 seconds and identified the rake formation. The exact configuration Lerona del Mare always used to disorient long-range detection systems. Speedboats staggered like saw teeth, heat distributed evenly to prevent radar from determining accurate numbers. The Poseidon team pushed data to the task force immediately. On the Arleigh Burke, alert sounds pierced the darkness. The command center switched to intercept mode. Every system activated. The entire map went from calm to operational. Poseidon ran 2 more scanning passes, added infrared, added speed data. The 3rd scan confirmed it beyond any doubt. All 98 speedboats had departed from the Colombian coast exactly as the FBI predicted from low-band radio intercepts. Speed held steady at 51 to 55 knots, completely dark, no AIS, no signals. 40-foot composite hulls slicing the sea like red-hot metal through water. On the surface, the task force shifted formation. The destroyer reduced speed and switched to passive guidance. The littoral combat ship slid left to block deep-sea dispersal routes. The 2 Coast Guard cutters drifted to pre-calculated positions in the killbox perimeter. No U.S. vessel used active radar. All remained in silent mode to leave no electronic signature. Inside the Arleigh Burke, the SEAL team stood motionless on the aft deck. No one spoke. Wind carried the salt ocean smell and the familiar feel of missions, where every mistake costs time and opportunity. They rechecked night vision goggles, harnesses, wire cutters, sidearms, engine disabling tools. All understood the protocol. No rash moves, no early action, no detection. At 2:48 hours, Poseidon sent an update. The cartel fleet began widening left to avoid a reef line, the exact move the task force predicted. The cross-current here forced them to hold straight if they didn't want to burn extra fuel. Just maintain speed and they would charge into the death corridor between 2 reef points. A space so narrow that one speedboat turning would chaos the entire formation into disaster. At 3:10 hours, Poseidon locked on to target. Heat signatures from all 98 speedboats grew larger on screen, bright and dense enough that the technician described seeing 98 torches tilted by wind. speed steady at 54 knots. Poseidon continuously updated vectors, sending data packets every 10 seconds. US ships remained silent, black steel masses floating in the ocean, waiting. At 3:42 hours, Poseidon reported the key signal. The speedboat fleet shifted to saw running formation. Each boat offset 5 to 7 meters, creating complex heat reflection patterns. This indicated the cartel accelerating to clear the first reef, but this sawtooth configuration forced even spacing and prevented sudden turns. The task force tracked every move. The littoral combat ship slid slightly left to lock another escape route. Cutters zigzagged to position at the final blocking point. On the destroyer, SEALs kept hands on weapons. Safety switches remained on. They knew waiting for all 98 to enter the kill box was critical. Fire early and disable one boat, or let one spotlight, and the entire formation would scatter in 90 seconds. At 55 knots, they could vanish from radar in under a minute. The cartel trained for dispersal. They knew how to scatter when danger appeared, but what they didn't know was simple. They weren't being chased. They were being lured. At 4-7 hours, the first speedboat crossed the invisible boundary, entering the corridor between reef lines. At 4-9, 30 more followed, all holding formation. No turns. The cross current doing exactly what the task force designed it to do, forcing each boat straight to avoid flipping or losing speed. At 4:12 hours, the moment arrived. All 98 speedboats entered the kill box simultaneously, none missing, full formation. On the SEAL commander's screen, the entire death corridor blazed with 98 heat signatures overlapping into a pulsing red cluster like a beating heart. The cartel had no idea they'd charged into the most sophisticated naval trap ever constructed just to stop a criminal fleet. In that instant, an MH-60R Seahawk detached from the destroyer's deck, tilted rotors, and dived low. Blades sliced night air into white swirls across the sea. In the open bay, a harpoon marksman locked the first target, a speedboat racing at 50 knots. Composite hull nearly lost in darkness. Engine-piercing rounds left the barrel. 1, 2, then a short, precise burst. Chilling accuracy. The speedboat jerked. Stern bounced. Engine sparked, then died. 12 others shared the fate in the first 70 seconds. From above, Poseidon monitored the entire scene via FLIR, vectoring each unit. Below, Coast Guard cutters launched interceptor boats. Small pursuit craft bounced off waves, engines screaming, charging at near cartel speeds. Some speedboats suddenly ignited. Flames burst like fireworks, then extinguished in sharp sea wind hisses. Bootleg fuel, impure, flammable. One precise hit at the right angle turned the engine into a bomb. In the killbox center, the SEAL team acted when the flow disrupted enough to create gaps. 3 fast ropes dropped into darkness. SEALs slid down in groups, fast as shadows, landing on central speedboats where FBI identified leaders and the heaviest cargo. The sea splashed silver columns as boats shuddered under sudden weight. Close quarters combat erupted almost immediately. Cartel personnel jettisoned cargo. Large cocaine bales pushed overboard, falling like glistening white chunks under infrared light. Some drew crude homemade weapons, short-range guns designed for psychological disruption only. SEALs didn't respond with lethal fire. They tossed stun grenades flashing bright, thrown precisely to disorient, then short, controlled bursts only to neutralize threats and subdue resistance. Disabled engine sounds chained across waves, creating chaotic audio. Roaring motors, snapping propellers, hitting resistance, water-slapping hulls as speedboats lost direction. On boat number 49 near Formation Center, 2 SEALs blocked the front. 1 leaped from behind. Subdued the cartel commander known as El Marino. He tried twisting the wheel to escape the kill box, but a final SEAL ripped his hands from the controls and pinned him to the deck. Pursuit outside the kill box perimeter continued. Interceptor boats tailed fleeing vessels. They zigzagged with constant turns, seeking gaps, but Coast Guard navigation locked every escape route and forced these speedboats into dead ends. 4 were pushed into cross waves, lost balance, and stopped completely. 2 others tried circling out, but got engine pierced by Seahawk marksmen in 3 shots. No speedboat breached the perimeter. When operation time hit 27 minutes, the cartel fleet officially disintegrated. The aftermath revealed the scope of success. 41 speedboats disabled with total engine failure. 39 seized intact, each holding 40 to 80 pounds of cocaine. 18 sunk from explosions or composite hull destruction. Over 6,000 pounds of refined cocaine recovered. Compressed white blocks marked with Lerona del Mare operational codes, but the cocaine wasn't the real prize. The electronics were. Backup GPS systems, offline navigation devices, Inmarsat satellite phones, low-frequency communication sets the cartel used for formation coordination. Each device held schedules, coordinates, routes, operator names, encrypted data enough for FBI to trace the entire international maritime network. All 8 priority FBI targets captured. The entire speedboat fleet command structure neutralized. Not just losing cargo, losing vehicles, losing the entire fleet itself. 98 speedboats, each worth $70,000 to $200,000, disabled, seized, or sunk. The secret maritime route Lerona del Mare relied on for their $100 million cocaine cycles vanished from the map. When you're a cartel, you don't just lose drugs. You lose speed, you lose mobility, you lose dispersal ability. You lose the most precious asset for sea criminals, anonymity. For US forces, Operation Black Current became a textbook interagency combat model. FBI hunts signals, Navy sets killbox, Coast Guard blocks the final layer, SEALs rapid suppress and capture, an operation where every link is precise enough that nothing escapes the perimeter. In the final report, the operation commander wrote one short line: "No formation runs faster than a perfectly prepared killbox." Operation Black Current wasn't just a tactical victory. It was proof that when US military agencies combine, when intelligence merges with operational precision, when special forces execute in perfect coordination, no criminal organization moves fast enough, stays secretive enough, or remains bold enough to escape. Subscribe to see more operations like this.